So back in the start of this channel, some of you might remember that I created this flat design office scene and shared it with you guys. And the main point of it was to show with different color, highlights and shadows how you could make a flat design illustration pop. And I feel I've grown better since I put this out, so I kind of wanted to give it another pop. I didn't want to create the same scene because that would be a little boring, so I thought I'll do another office scene with a limited palette but have it set at night. And that would give me a little bit of a challenge with how colors change at night when there's limited light coming in. I started by trying to compose my scene. I knew I wanted to have a bookshelf, a desk, a monitor, a chair, and a window. So I wanted to find the best way to lay out all of these elements within my artboard. So I started just with outlines. And then I used that as a base, created another layer on top of that, and gave those initial shapes a little bit more detail. Because with a little bit more detail, you can see if your actual composition fits as well as you suspect it's going to. I wanted to have some similar elements that I had in my initial illustration, like the desk lamp, books, a mug on the table itself, a monitor, a window, but do it in a completely new and fresh way. So you could see in the beginning of this, I brought some color palettes in, just a screenshot of a couple of different palettes, and I sampled all the colors and put them into some folders in my swatch panel. And these colors that I'm currently using are by no means final. I just like to have an idea of the dark and lighter areas that I plan to have. But as you'll see as the illustration goes on, these colors, most of them at least, do change quite a bit as we continue. So for shadows and highlights, I'm just using either white or off-white, slightly light pink, and black with their opacity down between 10 and 20, depending on the light or the shadow sources, and playing around with different opacity levels for different sections. And that's all I'm doing with regards to highlights and shadows. This bookshelf was a bit funky because I didn't want just books. I wanted some more added interest on the shelf. So I was trying to find some other bits and pieces to add to give it a little bit more visual interest as opposed to just rows and rows of books. This in the corner that I'm currently going over is meant to be games. I don't think they look like games, but the intention was there. Again, none of these colors were meant to be final, but I found that somehow through making them, I kind of liked how they look together. I thought I'd give the window a blind for some more interest because it just seemed like a big empty space, and I didn't really want to illustrate anything outside of the office. So I gave it a blind to make it a little bit more interesting and not just like a big area of dark color. And we know that most desk lights are metallic, so that has more of a shine to it. So the opacity for the white was upped a little bit for the desk lamp. I wasn't happy with the background color. It looked like midday. I wanted it to look darker, so I changed it to a darker purple, and I think that works a little better. and some highlights on the edges of the pictures on the wall and on the bookshelf. Darkened up the background, and I just did a clipping mask there just for a second to see how it looked when it was all clipped at the end. And I kept the highlights relatively simple for the bookshelf. I didn't want to go too... It could have got really complicated really quickly. So I just thought, let me highlight the right side of every book, and those bits that should be in shadow, try and give them a very subtle shadow. But I kept it really simple for the most part. And then for the shadows, I just copied over the group of images, colored it in black, put the opacity to about 12, and that's it. I probably could have been a little bit more refined with the shadows on the bookshelf, but I thought it worked with how I did it. And now I'm just creating something to go on the desktop screen. I really didn't know what to go here, so I just thought just a generic profile page would work. And then just some final refinements on some shadows and highlights. As you can see, that takes the most work. The actual making the objects themselves was the quickest part of this whole illustration. It's the color and the shading and the highlights that really takes a long time to put together. And there we have it, all done. I'm quite pleased in how it turned out. I think I could have given it a little bit more detail, but I think that would take away from the whole flat design look of it. I still wanted it to look illustrated, not super realistic. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys, and I hope you guys are keeping busy, keeping out of trouble, and improving your skills while you have the time. And I will be back soon with a new video. You guys take care. Bye.